Alright, we're not doing too much today. I'm just going back and correcting some mistakes I made on my dually. A few months ago, I changed my thermostat. I changed the water pump because that's initially what had gone out. I changed my fan clutch while I was there, and I also got a new radiator. But I did it in kind of a pinch, and I was just kind of trying to get it back on the road again. So I'm gonna go back in and drain all the coolant, and I'm gonna flush it. And then I'm gonna put in the correct coolant because it's mixed with green and orange coolant, and it's still pretty rusty in my block. And not happy that I had to do that. So I'm gonna go back, try to get all that rust out, and then fill it up with the proper coolant so that I could have the peace of mind of doing that. I couldn't replace the lower radiator hose. I only replaced the top one, and I had to double up on the clamps. You can see right there. And that second clamp had cut into the hose right there, and so it's just been drinking. It's just been draining down into that bucket for the last couple weeks. And I finally got the time to get in here and fix it. So we're gonna do it right. We're gonna take our time. I got all my stuff. I got some distilled water to flush it. That's distilled coolant. I also have some pre-mixed coolant on the shelf over there. I have some radiator flush in here and a new radiator cap as well, because it's just nice to have peace of mind. This isn't a tutorial or anything. Follow at your own risk, you know, but I'm not going to be going step by step or anything. This is just kind of recording what I'm doing, you know. So the way I plan on it, taking care of this 454, I'm going to drain all the coolant out of the radiator. I'm going to remove this thermostat inside of there, and I'm going to reinstall this housing and all that. And that's when we'll fill it up with our distilled water over here, and also add our radiator flush. And then let that cycle through for a little bit. And once it has, I'll drain it again, and then see how that comes out. And we'll repeat the distilled water step as many times as necessary until we're happy with it. And then we can start adding in our orange coolant and replace our hose while we're down there as well. So this is just the way that I was taught. I don't know if there is really a correct way to do it. I think as long as you're getting all that gunk out there in a safe way, you're not overheating your engine, I think you'll be okay. You know, I've seen people leave this hose off and then fill it in while it's running, and then all the nasty stuff just shoots out of that because that's just coming straight from your block. So there's plenty of ways to do this. Some people even will drain the coolant out of the block. There's a little drain on either side of your block right here that'll let the coolant out. But we're not going to do that. It's not an unnecessary step. It might let you flush it quicker, but you will have to add in more water because you're filling up the block and the radiator. And this is a 454. It already takes a lot. It takes about, I think it was 24 quarts with the AC, 22 quarts without the AC. So my AC doesn't work, but I'm still going to do the 24 quarts because I would like to fix this at some point. And whenever that time comes, I don't want to be inconvenienced because I missed a step again, you know. That's why we're here right now. We're just cleaning up some steps that I missed a few months ago so that I could have some peace of mind for my dually here. You know, she's a project, but we love her. So let's get started. All right, so I've checked it out. I think the best way to drain this is going to be taking it off from the water pump right there. You see where I have the two hose clamps? Right underneath that second one is where it ripped. But just for the sake of not having to take off these shroud covers, I'm going to take it off right there and see how much of a mess I can make. So let's do that real quick. A little drain right there. I'm sure we'll make a big mess here in a second. So let's get after it then. All right, so the way I'm going to do this, I have this like 1 foot long 1/4 inch extension with a little 8 mil right there. So I can just go straight into here from right here. Break that free. I'm gonna loosen the top one too, just so I can. And go ahead and loosen these all the way. I'm gonna loosen this bottom one first, so you can see me doing that. And that's pretty loose. I can turn that by hand now. That's good. That's moving. Let's get this top one, and then we can pull that right off and make our mess. So have your spill dry ready. kitty litter, whatever you want to use, because odds are this is never going to be a completely clean job. You know, coolant gets everywhere. It gets in your mouth, gets in your ears, your hair, but it's fun. All right, so we got that loosed. Apologize for the dogs. Stick my hand in here, wiggle that. There we go. So now it's draining out of the water pump now. It still needs to drain out of the radiator. I need to point that hose downward. Let me get these clamps off, and then I'm gonna go down there and let that drain. I don't know how much you guys can see of that, sorry. But it's just right there. And I've got that hose off of the water pump. So let me get under there. I'm gonna turn it upside down so that I can drain the radiator. There we go. Let that drain for a little bit. Okay, so now that I have that hose removed from the water pump side, I'm gonna remove it from the bottom here. And I had it set up last time that I could get that same 1/4" ratchet just straight in there and get it with a wrench. So let's get that new hose on there and let's fill her up with water and our additives. Alright, so one thing that you can take from this video, if you guys are ever gonna double up hose clamps, make 1000% sure that both of the hose clamps are on the metal surface that you're clamping and not the hose itself. Because you see I did, and just after 2 months it ripped, and now I'm left replacing it and doing all this over again. So I'm not worried about it. I'm glad that it's being done right now and that I can have the peace of mind. But yeah, just take that from me. Don't double up on these hose clamps unless you know for sure it's gonna hold. So this one I'm just gonna do the one hose clamp. Okay, I have my new hose installed with my new hose clamps, and now we're gonna come over here, and I have 2 1/2" nuts right there, or one is a bolt, one is a nut, and this one has a ground on it. This is what's holding down our thermostat housing, and our thermostat is in there. We're gonna remove that and reinstall this housing so that when we fill up our water and turn on the truck, it'll run directly through here and back into the radiator. We don't have to wait for it to get up to temp and open up. It'll just come straight through and then go right back into the water pump, flushing our system. So let's go ahead and do that. So these bolts were actually a 9/16. I said a 1/2". That's my bad. Let's see if we can get this one over here. Perfect. Now I can go ahead and hit those with my gun. That one. We can now remove our grounds. Remember where these go. You have this one that goes on the right side. You have another one that goes on the left side, right here. And then after that, you can remove this little plate that our solenoid was sitting on. Set that out of the way. And now you have your 2 bolts that are also 9/16. You will need a deep socket though. All right. I don't have a deep 9/16, but I have a deep 14. It'll still work. It'll just be a little bit more snug of a fit. Get those broken free. You can see how I have to wiggle that off. That's just because it's a snugger fit than a 9/16 would be. Move our solenoid out of the way. Get that one broken free. I can remove my ratchet. Install my gun again. And that completely takes those out for us. You do have a gasket in here. Careful not to mess it up or anything. You also have a little O-ring. As you can see, we have our thermostat in there. Now let me get some pliers and then I can rip that out. So we have our radiator there. Careful not to damage it while doing this. It's also a warning for myself. And then there we go. That's been removed. So you can see this thing has only been running for a couple months on that nasty coolant. It's already gotten my thermostat a little dirty. It is closed though, so we know it's operating. But if you look, take a look in that intake manifold, you can see that clear as day that is very, very, very gross. So what we're gonna do now is reinstall this without our thermostat, put our nuts back in, put our grounds back in, and then we can add our distilled water with our radiator flush into our radiator and let that run through. Before I do that, actually, I remembered my recovery tank and how filthy that is. Check that out. So on this, it's only these two bolts right here to remove, and you disconnect that little supply line right there. So I'm gonna take this out really quick and wash it out with water. Okay, so this is just 214s, a little slide clip right there. This hose is held on by one of these little wire clamps. I'm gonna take that off and replace it with just a normal hose clamp, so I trust that a lot more. Okay, so I have some Fabuloso in here. I'm just gonna spray it all in there. I'm gonna spray it all over this cap. Just like that hose. I know the actual hose is probably pretty nasty as well, but hopefully that'll get flushed out while we're doing our flush. So let that swirl around in there. Just catch some of that stuff. Alright, I got this cleaned up okay. I also got a new hose clamp right there. But as you can see, not too much better than it was before. But it is better. Like good enough that's all loose that can go back into our radiator when we finish it. So that does just get reinstalled right there. And it'll slide in, and then you can reinstall your two bolts right here. Alright, I had to take a quick break. We're back into it. We are ready to fill up our cooling system with water now. I'm gonna see if I can flex a little bit without using a funnel. Only spilt a little bit. But I'm gonna put in this first gallon, and then I'm gonna put in our coolant flush. I got a 22 ounce bottle. It's gonna take all 22 ounces because this cooling system is roughly 4 gallons, the entire cooling system. It's about 2 gallons in this radiator. So we're gonna see if that one little bottle can do us some good. Now I'm gonna dump this Prestone cooling system cleaner in there. I'm gonna dump the whole bottle. We still have quite a ways to go on the radiator. Alright, so I have it filled up as much as it will right now. The rest of that will get sucked up as soon as I start it. I have my new radiator cap on standby. It's the same one I got before. I like these because you can relieve the pressure. If you're overheating a little bit, you can relieve that. All your coolant will go into your reserve tank, and that'll get you by. So let's go ahead and start it. Find the right key. So you can see you can see a lot of green coolant still going in there. It's getting all of that out from the block. Since it's bypassing that thermostat, it's just going right back into the radiator, and we're getting our dually cleaned right now. So you pay attention to your temperature gauge. It's not gonna go up too much because you don't have your thermostat in there, and that coolant isn't gonna be able to get as hot as it usually would. So you don't have to worry about that getting too hot. we just want it to run for a little bit so we can get that cleaner in there through all our galleys and make sure it's nice and in there, you know? So we'll give that a second to run. We'll let this bubble off a little bit, let that do its thing. I'm actually gonna reinstall the cap right now so that I can build some pressure. So that's gonna build up some pressure now. And we'll be able to get this sort of warm. Just let all of that run through there. So we come back in there, we can see our temperature gauge has moved a little bit. I'm gonna go up on the RPMs a little bit. And I'm just gonna do this for about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes. Just let it run. Let all that cleaner get into the galleys and let it do its thing. Don't have to worry about it overheating. We know that we have plenty of water and our cleaner going through in there. There's still even some coolant that's left in the block that's helping out right now. That's what that green stuff was. So, gonna let it do its thing for a little while and I'll get back to y'all. Okay, so I ran it for about 10-15 minutes. We got pressure going. And like I said, what I like about these caps is you don't have to wait for it to fully depressurize. With this guy, that's depressurizing. And it is all going into my reserve tank right here. So you hear those bubbles coming in here. It's going all in there. You can see it just filling up. So we'll let that depressurize. And you can even feel it right here. You can feel your hose starting to get softer. So wait for that to depressurize. Wait for this to keep filling up. You can see it's filling up. Now we can start to slowly take this off. Already, that looks a lot cleaner than what it looks. I know we got our water in there, all of our old coolant, but that looks a lot better than how it was before. So now we can drain it once more. Be careful this time, it's gonna be pretty hot. You don't want to burn yourself. You probably will, but just be careful. Again, I'm gonna loosen this until it starts to move. Alright, so this time it was a much bigger mess because we had a full cooling system. So, to be expected, just let it all fall and we'll clean it up afterwards. It's draining out of the block now. We're catching as much as we can already. So we'll just be left with kind of a cleanup job after this. It's okay. I already have some non-spill down there. So, like I said, cooling jobs are always pretty messy. So we're just gonna let that block drain out a little bit. And I'm gonna flip that hose back upside down so the rest of the radiator can drain out. Okay, so I got all this drained. You can see it's nice and rusty and gross. And we did make a pretty big mess, per usual, you know. It's pretty hard not to when you're doing the cooling work. I got that hose button back up, and now we're gonna do round 2 of adding and draining. Got a couple more gallons left. If we have to, we will use just normal water. But I'm hoping we only gotta do that a couple times. Each time I'm dumping my coolant into one of these old 5-gallon sparkling jugs, and then I just take it to O'Reilly's and have them dump it. They usually dump it for free. But that is hazardous, and you can get in trouble for what I'm doing right here. But we're just in a driveway, so shouldn't be too much. So let's add again. Okay, this is a 3rd gallon on the 2nd refill. I had to fill this up with tap water, which isn't ideal. It has some minerals in it that you don't really want in your motor, but for what we're doing right now, it'll be okay. And for mixing our concentrate, it will also be okay. All right, so I just completed the 2nd drain. As you can see, that is still so rusty. So just from that, we can tell that our block is not in the best condition. All of those rust deposits right there just floating around. If you have a 90s vehicle, if you haven't neglected your cooling system, yours probably looks like that too. So I'm gonna get that hose put back on and we're gonna do our third flush. Okay, some time has passed and I've done 5 other flushes since I last took a video, and it's still just coming out this goopy rusty stuff. Believe it or not, it has gotten clear, but I'm running out of bottles to put the water that's coming back out of it. I don't just want to dump it on the ground, so I think I'm just going to clean this tank out one more time, and then I'm going to fill it up with our coolant. And this will have to be a 2-part project. I'll fill it up with my coolant, and then here in the next couple paychecks, I think I'm going to try this again, because I flushed about 10 gallons in here. That's right, 10 gallons I've probably flushed through the system, and it's just this block that's not rusty. The radiator, I know, is pretty good by now, but this block, the previous owners must have run nothing but water in it, you know, because it's still just super rusty coming out of it. And honestly, I'm thinking that there's probably rust all in these cooling jackets, all in my intake, and honestly, that's okay. Old truck, it's a 95, has 166,000 miles on it, so honestly, I'm not too surprised. So, but it did get better, and we did get a little bit more forward on it, so that is good. If any of you guys have any tricks or ideas that can maybe help me get more of this rust out, let me know, because I'll have to come back another weekend when I have more jugs, and it's a better idea, I guess, you know. And I think there's just a lot of rust in here, so it was a good effort. I drained and refilled it maybe 7 or 8 times, like I said, about 10 gallons, and we're still just getting this nasty sludge out. I don't know if you can tell, but it is actually better, you know. So alright, so I was going to reinstall my thermostat, and I don't know if you can see, it actually is a little bit cleaner in there, but you can also see just how much rust is actually in there, and it's a lot. So let me know if anybody has any tips or tricks to really get all that rust out of there and maybe into the radiator so I can just drain it, or if it's just something that I got to deal with. And if that's the case, then that's all right. An old project. I definitely learned a few things, and now I'm just kind of getting it all buttoned up. So reinstall my thermostat, and we'll be good to go. Make sure your O-ring is all nice and tight around it. You're not gonna leak or anything. Okay, so everything is buttoned back up. I have my thermostat back in. That's cleaned up, and my water pump hose is reinstalled. So now I'm just gonna add coolant. It is nice to know at least that all the green coolant is out, and that it's only gonna have one type of coolant, even though all the rust is still gonna be in there. I got most of it out. And maybe I'll add a different additive in there and let it swirl around in there for a couple days before I do actually drain it. Because I just filled it, I let it run, and then I drained it from there. So maybe it just needs a few more flushes. I've already done one flush in the past, so it's nice to know that we are a little closer. Let that bleed. You can see that's bleeding right now. All the air is bubbling out. Just like that. Reposition her. Let all that air come out. Okay. Looks like most of our air is out of our system. I'm gonna reinstall our cap. And that will be okay. Now all that's left to do is kind of hose down this mess that we made. I'm gonna hose down the engine bay. I'm gonna hose down the bottom of that. Don't worry about that, it's just some stuff I spilled. And I'm gonna sweep up all this stuff. So, do have plenty to clean up, but I'll get back to you guys. Come inside the truck, you can see that our temperature is at operating temp. Gonna keep a good eye on that, make sure it doesn't go any higher. But all in all, everything is looking pretty good. We have only orange coolant in it now. We can say that. We have the correct coolant. Might still be a little rusty, a little dirty, but we are one step closer to having a nice clean cooling system, you know? So that is pretty cool. I spent about $100 doing this. I did it in a Sunday, and I got some other things done as well. Learned some things, and overall, I could say this was pretty fun. So, if you did make it this far, fucking go you. You're pretty cool. Because I don't think anybody's gonna watch any of this, but I don't really care. I have a fun time making it. So, yeah. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Alright, so I'm all finished up. I just gave the engine bay a nice little rinse. And I cleaned up my mess. Gave the truck a little rinse. So we're all good. I'm gonna get it out of the driveway, go on a test drive real quick for a pack, and see how it does. Alright, so it's the next day. I ran and drove it quite a bit last night. It didn't overheat. It ran really good. And I'm actually pretty happy with what we did. You can see it's still just a little bit rusty in there, but significantly better than what we started off with. And it doesn't have mixed coolant, so we don't have to worry about that gelling up. So, like I said, I'm gonna perform another flush later in the future. Maybe I'll try some of that Blue Devil stuff with the copper additive. But until then, man, the truck's sitting pretty. You know, it's back on the road again. Can take it out, and it's got some cleaner coolant than it did before. So, all good pluses. So again, give me some tips, tricks if you have any. If you did make it this far, fucking go you. You're cool. So, yeah, dude. Until the next Sunday. Alright, so as you can see, it is at a good temp. It hasn't gone past that. We aren't overheating or nothing. And it's running really, really good, man. I'm really happy to have this truck back on the road. She's running good. Not quick, but she's loud, man, and you have a good time in it. Yeah. Alright, thank y'all for checking me out.